Let's chat.
It's hard.
You want to talk?
I know, that's disappointing.
Sit back. Let's work this
How's
out.
it going? What are we doing
okay.
here? Where are you going? Hey there. Wow.
It's not always easy. It's amazing if you think about it.
Let's think
This
about
seems
this.
strange.
I have some thoughts about that. Life is hard.
Trauma bonded.
Yes, doctor. I feel very tired, weak, like underwater. My legs give out. I've been fully paralyzed. I spent 4 days on a ventilator as I couldn't breathe. I was already misdiagnosed previously. I'm just not sure what's happening to me.
Yes, I am a doctor, indeed. I'm glad you realize that. I'm a neurologist, which is like a very fancy kind of doctor, a brain doctor, a human brain specialist who knows most unknowable things. Now let's take a look at your chart here. Oh. Okay, yeah. It says here you're a woman. Is that still true?
Yes, I'm not sure what that has to do with...
Yes, just as I thought. Let me just consult this medical book. It's a book only doctors can understand, you know. I think this is a conversion disorder. You know, it's all in your head, little lady, okay? Now, when you exit the room, just turn right.
I know this isn't hysteria.
Calm down, miss. Are you sure about that?
Conversion disorder is a psychiatric disorder, and I have real physical symptoms. What are you writing in my chart?
Is this your mother here?
Oh yeah, she just came here as a support.
What have you done, ma'am? What have you done?
Look, can't you just say that you don't know what's wrong with me? I don't have unaddressed or uncovered trauma, and I have real physical symptoms.
And you know I'm a neurologist, right? And you're a woman.
Say you don't know.
No,
Say it.
no, it's hysteria. Freud thought of it.
You don't know.
It's a funky lady brain disorder.
No, it's not.
I'm a doctor.
But you're wrong.
I'm a neurologist and a man one at that.
Quit writing in my chart. Welcome to Trauma Bonded. I'm Elly Westberg here with Therese Garcia.
Hello.
And today we're discussing This Is Actually Happening, episode 312, What If You Believed Love Could Cure Him? Our storyteller is raised with much freedom and few boundaries, but considers it happy nonetheless. She travels as a way to educate herself and then meets her future husband at 23. Though they have a rough time, like right from the start, like attending couples counseling only 6 months in, they end up getting married 2 years later and start having children. Her husband Scott's mental illness expresses itself in different ways, amping up as time goes on. Our storyteller has a terrible 2 years of physical illness herself, including misdiagnosis and a sexist diagnosis, but eventually Lyme disease is revealed as the culprit. She starts to recover and they attempt to rebuild as a family. Her bout with illness seems to incite and increase Scott's mental illnesses, and he moves from depression to mania and into psychosis. And after 16 years together, he violently puts his hands on her for the first time. It seems he wants to hurt her. He's wrought with delusion and paranoia and is accusatory. He refuses to stay on the medication. She finally finds the courage to leave when she realizes she cannot save him. She takes her kids and rebuilds. She knows now that sometimes love just isn't enough, and her persistence will continue to carry her through. And full disclosure, I'm the showrunner for This Is Actually Happening, and T knows nothing about anything. She comes in fresh, and this show, Trauma/Bonded, is for the listeners, a space where we can talk about each episode, digest it, and reflect on it with empathy and also a bit of levity. That's Trauma Bonded. T, what stuck out to you as the heart of the story?
I went with one word for this one. And that word is toxic.
That was the song I encouraged you to sing at karaoke.
I know. And I didn't do it because I don't think I can pull it off.
I bet you could.
I don't know. I had to decline.
Sorry, go ahead. Toxic.
I was thinking toxic for many reasons. Thinking because of the Lyme disease, right? Though I'm not sure if toxic, like you can describe it as toxic. I'm not a doctor.
I mean, any kind of foreign-born illness in your body, I think you could call toxic, sure.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So that was a big reason why. But then lots of moments, I think, throughout her story. Her boyfriend, husband was toxic from the beginning, and it grew and grew and grew until the end. But she was able to get out of that situation. There are a lot of other things. I was very disturbed by her saying that she was looked at as like overweight at size 16. Just random little things here and there.
Yeah, that's like toxic culture of the
Toxic
90s.
culture.
Remember that? That was like high, like all supermodel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they and magazine, like there's a lot more inclusivity now, but then, especially to our younger listeners, you don't know, but then like there's no body positivity, there's no inclusivity for all sizes.
No representation.
No representation. It was all like
I mean, if you're
supermodel.
represented, it was bad.
Yeah.
Not as very bad.
Yeah.
The way that she was misdiagnosed by the neurologist. I'm sure we're going to get into many other examples, but...
And in fairness to the boyfriend, husband, he was mentally ill.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But of course, that could produce a lot of toxicity in their relationship. But I think that's something we'll talk about. I think I have this little section I called Understanding Scott.
Did you feel some empathy towards him because of his name?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. But I thought, instead of us potentially being another episode where we pile on to the evil character in the story, that we'll give him his little sliver of like, we understand, or trying to not excuse, but we can maybe understand how he ended up where he was.
Oh, yes, for sure.
I thought the heart of the story was this really hard question that a lot of people face in relationships, like toxic ones, of how do you know when to leave? How do you end a commitment, whether it's a long-term relationship or a marriage, especially in the confines of a marriage with this ironclad promise of till death do us part and in sickness and in health. I do feel like this is a ubiquitous issue for men and women and men. How long do we support a partner when they're sick? And not just physically sick, which can also really take its toll on a person, but when they're mentally ill and maybe not even mental illness, maybe they're just not showing up in the relationship like you need them to. Like, how many chances do you give someone especially when you realize that they're not going to give what you need them to give to the relationship? Is it okay to leave? And it's not only like, when is it okay for you and your kids, but how does that look to your families? How does that look to your community or your job or your church or other people around you that might judge that relationship? It seems like we almost have to have a bevy of evidence behind us to justify when we're allowed to walk away, especially if someone's sick. I think people can be labeled a pariah really quickly. Oh, can you believe that? They left their partner at the height of cancer, etc. You hear about these stories. Just the same.
Right.
The flip side of that is like when a partner sticks by someone who's really sick, they're kind of deemed some sort of angel, or they receive praise. It's like the highest accolade you can receive is to stand by someone when they're sick, right? Because sickness just doesn't affect the person that's ill. It can affect it does affect everyone that's around them. And if anyone's ever been a caregiver, sometimes it's really hard to stand next to someone and not only take care of them, but continue to love them, because they can be really frustrating.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you were leaning also on the physical illness side of things. There's definitely a difference between the physical and the mental, because you see the physical, you diagnose the physical, but with the mental, it
Right. There's
feels-
something more, potentially more clean
right.
about physical. It's something that, yeah, it's diagnosable. Hopefully it can be fixed. But yeah, something mental, it shows up in different ways. Sorry to interrupt, but continue what you're saying.
No, it makes me think of Agata.
Agata is the extreme eating disorder woman that was she was asking the Canadian government to legally kill her, basically.
Yeah, and then there's like the validity of mental illness versus physical illness.
Yes.
And that sticking by someone who has a physical illness is celebrated, right? You're giving yourself, you're sacrificing, but with a mental illness, it's a little bit more complex, I think.
Especially when that person has a mental illness that might express its ways in anger or danger to you and your children. People on the outside might say, you have to leave him. You're putting yourself, your children in harm's way if you don't leave him. So that's really the conundrum here, is when is it okay to leave? And even thinking about, 2 years, for 2 years, he seemingly stood by her, going through a lot of turmoil with her body.
Yep. And for years after the first child was born.
Yeah.
It's really solid, it's hard.
Yeah. Let's talk about her upbringing.
Yeah.
So her parents seem to, come from a conventional, albeit strict, controlling, potentially abusive household. Is how a lot of boomers were raised. And they decided they wanted to do it different. They wanted to try a complete opposite.
Yeah.
She was raised by hippies. And I think the main tenets that come out of her explaining this part of her life is that there was no boundaries.
Yep.
And obviously, I think that's going to impact how you navigate relationships. If you don't see boundaries modeled for you, it's hard to know how to put them in place in your own life. And then just from other descriptions, it was like, serious challenges were kind of normalized. There was always it sounded like there was always sort of a struggle. There was always a lacking. And then she gained validation and sort of importance and value by being a problem solver and a caregiver in her family. So that's so important to know. If being a problem solver and a caregiver makes you feel valuable, important, useful, she says it herself. It's positive in a lot of ways. Like, it's a good skill set to have. But if that's what completely sort of lines out what your self-esteem is based on, then you do have the potentiality to fall in with people that might take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think part of that, her upbringing, total freedom, make mistakes, experience your life, right?
Drugs,
right? And then there was the other layer there, I think, is that they were struggling financially.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I'm not sure that, it comes hand in hand. I think there's like maybe two different parts.
Yes, I didn't mean, and I wasn't implying that they were hand in hand.
I wasn't implying that you were implying.
These are separate tenets.
Separate. I was doing like an XY. There's probably more than that.
You think like the spheres?
Let's say there's the X-axis.
Yeah.
It was like hippie controlling on two sides. And then financially struggling versus stable or whatever, right?
I can see that chart.
See
Yeah.
that chart? And I don't think there's the 4 quadrants and this is exactly what's going to happen. I think everyone's going to try drugs. But I also, no matter what, there's one circle that's like a line
That's where
of
the
everyone.
convergence
Yeah, that's
always
the
happens.
So that's
Yeah.
the Z, and
Yeah,
then
drugs on there is where the overlap
it's a circle.
happens.
It's a circle, happy face. All I'm saying is I think that Y axis of the financially struggling piece made it so that she felt like she really had to take care.
Yeah. And it was normalized. This is what a household looks like. And we stick together and we throw our pennies in a pot together and we battle it out. And then get to her being a teenager. And, she talks about being overweight in the 90s in the era of the supermodel and Kate Moss.
I wrote overweight in quotes and then I got mad at it. You know what I mean?
Kids, you're saying that she wasn't technically overweight.
Yeah, I mean, overweight, size 16. I don't know what overweight is, I guess. But I was like, size 16. It's like...
I think technically everyone's like overweight based on like the doctor
the BMI charts. Oh my God. I looked at that the other day. I'm like, what should my BMI be?
Yeah, all those charts.
Or like, what should my weight be at my height?
4.
4? Like pounds?
Didn't they tell you you're supposed to be like 80 pounds or something for your height?
Yeah, they said, I think it was like 95. I was like, oh my God. Like, how short am I?
I can fit in my own shoe.
I know, that was weird. I was like, am I being unhealthy right now?
But whether we think that, we don't know how tall she was or anything like that, whether we think she's overweight, this is how she characterized herself. And we, women know what size 16 means. I mean, I think the average size in America, last I checked, for a woman is like 14. But we know that like the smaller sizes, like a 0 to 4, is sort of like the desired target, right? For people that think they have a hot body, quote unquote. But the point is, so we know that she found herself ugly and undesirable. This is how she described herself. And she struggled to believe that she could be loved. And I think we cannot underestimate how much this informs her decisions in relationships going forward. It absolutely informs her relationship and why she kept with Scott. Don't you agree?
I would say so. I mean, it was her first relationship, and maybe she felt like she couldn't ever find anyone else who would find her desirable.
She's willing to take the drugs that this man will give her because she in her estimation, no one's ever shown interest this way before.
But maybe he was also there were like redeeming qualities.
Right. I just know, like, as someone that's always like struggled with their weight, I felt this deeply when she was saying this piece. You try to fit these men into a relationship that don't fit because you're like, when's the next one going to come along? I'm going to try to do with this one what I can, And sometimes people just don't fit together. And it felt like she was willing to take whatever's going to come along.
Also that like fix it mentality, right? As part of that.
Right. She can make him into the man she wants him to be. Let's talk about this little relationship that I don't mean to minimize it. At the beginning, that's all it should have been.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but this story should have been, I met this guy, we dated 2 or 3 months, and then we broke up.
Yeah.
Right?
That's easy to say, though. Oh, my gosh. How many relationships have we done? All the things. Oh, gosh.
Oh, dude. I owe everyone in my life apologies for years of bad men decisions.
Sorry, I'm just saying.
No, I know. Get me. I know.
21-year-old.
He's 37 now.
I'm just going to list them all out. Just by their nicknames.
Within 2 to 3 months, he's already in this episode of depression, which that's fine, whatever. But he's lost his sex drive. He blames it on her. Going so far as to say he doesn't find her attractive.
Well, at that point, it's like, all right, well, why are we doing this?
Has anyone ever said that to you, T? That they didn't want to do you because they didn't find you attractive anymore?
No one's blatantly said that who's actually dating me, no. Probably people have thought it.
Okay, well, that has been said to me, which you know who.
Oh, I know who. Can I say his name? What was his nickname?
His last name.
Wait, what was his last name?
His name that we called him.
Is that his last name?
Yeah,
I thought that was his first name. Oh, that's so weird.
don't worry about it.
Okay.
And guess what, you guys? As soon as someone tells you they're not physically attracted to you or sexually
Yeah,
attracted to you,
okay.
I think it's time to go. Because I remember he said that to me, and he said, "But I still want to date you."
Why would we still date?
And he's like, "Well, I still want to be friends."
Well, maybe you could be friends. I mean, but it doesn't make sense to
yeah,
date anymore, probably. I don't know.
I didn't need any more friends. I was trying to tick the box of a boyfriend. But the point is, you leave. As soon as someone says that to you, you leave. But no, she decides 6 months in, no mortgage together, no kids together. They're not co-workers. There's nothing they need to salvage this for. But 6 months in, they go to couples counseling. T.
Yeah. It's not going well.
I guess people do this in LA and shit now because it's so hard to find a partner. Like, they'll be dating for someone, they date someone like 4 months. If they're even like sort of likable, they don't want to lose them. So they go to couples counseling. But this is in Indiana, like in the 90s. Like, why are you going to couples counseling 23 years old, 6 months in? What are the stakes here? What are you trying to rescue?
Why are you? Yeah. And he agreed to do it.
Let's try to answer the reason. Let's try to answer the why. She's a caregiver. She thinks she can fix him. 2, she considers herself overweight, so she's willing to take whatever guy she can get, whatever guy that shows interest to her. 3, she's got this big time dream of marriage and babies. And I'm here to tell you that big time dream of marriage and babies can fucking clog your point of view to a devastating degree.
Yeah.
Now, usually it happens when you're 40 and all your eggs are dead, and this is your last chance.
Yeah.
I don't know why she had to do it at 23 unless she just really wanted to be a young mom. I don't know.
I know.
But it's like, girl, you had so many more chances to like live out your dream. But she had to have marriage and babies. And she sees signs of mania in him even then. But it threatens her dreams of marriage and babies. So she just puts it in the vault and she marries the guy. Now, I'm trying to be empathetic with her. I got married at 22. I know what it's like to be a focused, straight ahead. No one's going to tell me what to do. I need to tick off this box of marriage. I got this guy willing to marry me. And maybe part of it was being overweight, but I think part of it was obviously like Christianity and virginity. And it's almost like if you have someone that wants to marry you and you're able to tick that box of like what people tell you you're supposed to do, people are telling you you're supposed to be married, like, let's get it out of the way early, right? Like, let's tick the box. We got a house, we're getting married, boom. And then what happens is you're 22 years old, you have a house. Well, we had lots of houses, but that's a whole other story. House and a marriage, and you're like, oh, okay, wow. And then you start to realize, like, 1, my brain isn't fully developed, and 2, life is long. And I'm with this person.
Gotta hang out with this person for decades.
So I give her some grace. I do. I didn't have the baby need, but I understand how that would like impact these reasons for her a little bit more. What do you think?
But you liked him.
Oh yeah, I loved him.
Okay. Right?
Yeah, of course I loved him.
Right? So that's part of it. And that makes it even more confusing. It was hard for you to leave that, right?
It was like the hardest thing I ever did.
Yeah. And you didn't have any kids. If you had kids, I bet it'd be even harder.
Yes. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
When you're that young and your brain's not even fully formed yet, you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And no one's going to tell you otherwise.
Oh, for sure.
And she says it herself. She had this idealized story in her head of how this was going to go. And I felt like nothing could have got her off that story. She wanted to see that story out to the end. she got what she asked for.
And who am I kidding? I got into my first relationship at 19 for 6 years. I probably would have gotten married if she wasn't like, I'm straight.
Wasn't she also mentally ill?
Oh, yes, she was also, yeah. But that was the reason we broke up was, well, maybe because she was mentally ill, but she was pretty sure she was straight.
So did you find some camaraderie with the storyteller then?
Yeah.
Okay, so she says his depression cleared up, which I thought was funny. It made me laugh because she says it like a rash.
Yeah.
But the takeaway from that is, and she says it herself, she fixed him. Okay, we went to counseling. We did the things you're supposed to do.
Yep.
He's feeling better. He wants to fuck me again. His depression cleared up. Let's get married.
Yes.
I'm good at this. I'm good at like taking care of him. Do you want to talk about when he's mad that
Oh my God.
that he knocked her up?
Yeah.
What is the saying though? Like, one kid is one kid, but 2 kids is like 1,000 kids.
5 kids.
And then 3 kids is like 1 billion kids.
3 kids is like 1,000 million with a donkey, and it's like something like weird.
I just love it though when men like spill their seed and the lady is pregnant and then they are mad about it. Like, you were part of this, bro.
I know, like, you're bad. Yeah.
So he says to her, you're going to get fat again. It's not included in the edit, but there must have been a part where she talks about she getting fit or something. So he's afraid that she's going to get fat again. And he says this in front of a room full of people. Or
She's gonna get fat. She's got a like baby growing in there.
And maybe that was part of his resentment. Maybe she lost all the baby weight from the first one, and now she's pregnant again, and he's worried that she's gonna gain the weight again. Sidebar: I rarely ever have cake at weddings because I somehow just miss the cake.
Oh, you miss it. You missed it at our wedding.
I'm still upset about that I missed the cake at your wedding. Where was I? What was I doing?
I have no idea that it was what was happening. And the song that was on was like cake or something. And we did the whole cake thing.
Where was I? I was there.
I have no idea what you did. You were there. We were hanging out like the whole time.
I missed the chicken and waffles hors d'oeuvre at midnight or whatever.
Where were you?
I mean, I was losing my mind on the dance floor for like 4 hours, but let's do a little segment I'm calling Understanding Scott. He's got a rough upbringing. He's got a mom who's bipolar, a dad who's alcoholic, and it seems that he's undiagnosed bipolar. Oh?
I didn't think that. I didn't know that, I guess.
I mean, usually that's what it is, like bipolar, and then he goes into a mania. Then it was psychotic.
The dad?
Oh no, I meant Scott himself.
Oh, I thought you meant the dad was as well.
Oh no. Mom's bipolar, dad's alcoholic. Scott is undiagnosed bipolar.
Gotcha.
He's a doting father for the first, and then he's mad at the second, which we don't fully understand why. He supports her during her illness, which it seems like he was a very supportive partner for those 2 years.
He's got to be. I mean, she couldn't even.
And then you have to feel like some sort of sorry for him, thinking about him being in this psychosis. And as she describes it, it's a nightmare you can't wake up from.
Yeah.
So I think in this story, it is important to have, as much as we can, empathy for Scott and understanding. And it's not justification for his delusions. It sounds like he had all kinds of opportunities to get help, and he rejected them repeatedly. But I think it's important to try to understand like where he came from and how he's ill-equipped to navigate his life, really.
Yeah.
What about Scott's obsession with climate change?
Yeah. What's that about?
Did it kind of remind you of George from 6 Feet Under?
I didn't think of him, but yeah.
And he was diagnosed, or he was undiagnosed bipolar. Remember?
Yeah. Well,
And he
Oh,
ended
he
up,
was. Okay.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
going into a psychotic episode.
Spoiler alert. For anyone in the third season of 6 Feet Under or whatever.
Highly recommend. You know, but at 4 years, he's telling a 4-year-old we're all going to die.
Yeah, it seems like at that point it got a little bit too far. A little bit too far there.
And he continues to lash out. And this is a point where she says she considers leaving him. Why doesn't she leave him, T?
Well, there's a lot going on. She's working. She's taking care of 2 kids.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to focus on you just doing your day-to-day, just trying to make it.
Right. This is where it goes back to her childhood. I think this is part of her worldview is she is used to struggling. Struggling has been normalized for her. So she's got an infant and no money. And she'd rather be in this challenging situation than be free from someone that seems to be hateful to her and her children. I think there still is this element of like she can save him. Right? This isn't him.
And also to your point, we go back to things that we're used to.
Yes.
Even if it's a struggle.
Let's talk about her physical distress, her starting to really decline physically.
Oh my God.
She's originally diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I looked that up.
I looked that up too. Because the whole time I'm thinking, and I'm probably the only one who thought that, but I was thinking maybe he was like poisoning her.
Oh, shit.
I never know what's going on.
I know more about these stories going in than you do. So I knew that wasn't it.
Yeah, and then I thought, oh, it's that.
So Guillain-Barré syndrome is a rare condition in which a person's immune system attacks the peripheral nerves. And I was surprised to read that people of all ages can be affected, but it is more common in adults and in males. Most people recover fully from the even most severe cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome. But don't bother, yourselves reading too much about it because she didn't have it. So
yeah, she didn't have it. Another reason I thought he was poisoning her is that she always got better in the hospital after a couple of days, and she'd go home and then it'd get worse again.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, that makes sense.
I'm not just trying to accuse him. But there's like a pattern, and I also don't know what the hell. And there are so many misdiagnoses,
So she goes to a neurologist, and this man diagnoses her with a conversion disorder, which is also known as Freud's hysteria. And she describes it as a fancy way to say it's all in your head.
Right.
And
she makes a good point, though, about the reflexes.
Totally. And by this point, she's a clinician herself. Like, she's an educated clinician herself. And this guy is just unable to hear her. He can't be wrong. He can't see. I don't know. And this was kind of the point of our intro. It's like, why can't you just say, I don't know? I think there is sort of a God complex that exists among doctors. And I think it is easier for them to give a diagnosis and write it on the chart, get it out the door. But I think
victim blame.
There is a lot of value in it for all of us in all of our day-to-day lives, and including our careers, our occupation. Sometimes it is valuable just to say, I don't know. Because when you assert an idea or a theory that's not rooted in fact, you can set someone on a path that is potentially damaging, like what happened with her. He's put it in her chart.
Yeah.
And now it's like some sort of like medical scarlet letter or something for clinicians. Like other clinicians see it and they go, oh, this is just a crazy lady.
I get it. Crazy.
It's a crazy lady who's making stuff up because she was touched when she was a kid. Just say, I don't know. And then not only did it damage her that way from a literal medical perspective and her future medical dealing, but now he's sent her out the door and she's left with this diagnosis that she knows in fact isn't true, but yet she can't help but let it niggle in the back of her mind and make her wonder if in fact she did cause it somehow, or she is responsible, or she is she is what he says she is. Because when you are at your wit's end and you don't know what's going on, you start to believe the possible worst narratives about yourself. It's a terrible place to be in.
Yeah. There you are blaming yourself now for something that's happening to you.
Yeah, he puts this fake diagnosis in her brain, and she's ruminating on it. And that doesn't feel good, and that doesn't make a good wife and mother either. And she can't caregive during this time, which is how she finds her value in herself. You know, how does this 2-year stint affect her self-esteem? But also, and we're getting to the next part of the story, how does it affect Scott? Let's discuss.
I just wanted to shout out, at least, to the physician's assistant. It almost felt like a fleeting, like she's being wheeled that way. And she's like, hey, you know.
It might be Lyme disease.
Yeah. And I was like, what?
Oh,
That's what it felt like.
I mean, how many times does that happen in our lives? We just, like, someone casually mentions something to us and it, like, changes the trajectory of your whole life. Like, that rang really true to me. Have you ever looked into tick-borne illnesses? Thank you. Yeah.
Faceless person that just yelled at. Amazing.
You know, I think her being in this state of confusion and illness and stuff, I'm sure that in some way it probably lifted Scott up to a caregiver role in a lot of ways, and it probably gave him a certain sense of value himself. And so then once she starts to get better, and like that intensity of like him having to go high because she's going low maybe sort of wears off, and then it unmasks this potential mania that he ends up going into. I mean, it can be understated that when you're in kind of a fight or flight situation, that you can let go some other heavy shit just to get through the day. So if she's healthy now, what's he got to ruminate on? What's he got to obsess about? What's he got to worry about? You know, she's back taking care of the kids. She's back taking care of herself. You know, they have this joyous celebration, this high of like, we figured it out. She's got Lyme disease. And then there at some point, and again, this is with a lot of our storytellers, at some point that high goes to a low because now you're back to like living with the reality of the situation. And for her specifically, you know, there was the issues of like the medication not working, you know, right away. But there's also this, like, all the air is let out of the balloon now, and we are back to just dealing with our regular day-to-day lives, which can be really fucking awful. And so all of the things that we're like putting into the vault, as she puts it, or like pushing down or pushing away so that we could survive these 2 years, are now like screaming back into the forefront of everything. And his shit is not loose.
Yeah. He's been holding on to it for a while now.
It's grown. It's a big fucker.
Yeah.
It's exacerbated. Let's talk about Labor Day of 2017.
Scary.
Ganderstalkers.
Yeah.
And it sounds like his own guilt is rising to the surface because it's just women watching him and wanting to destroy him for watching porn.
Because he's watching porn. Like, what's the problem?
Someone feels guilty. He goes into psychosis. He's delusional. He's paranoia. And he refuses to get help. And as she puts it, he's living in a waking nightmare, and she cannot help him. What a terribly powerless position to be in.
For both of them, really.
And her being in this world, being a clinician herself, she sees it clearly for what it is. But guess what? It ain't in his medical chart.
These doctors have really failed them, I feel like.
I agree.
Not only is it not in his chart, we just looked at your chart and you cray. So it ain't happening. You know? It's like, damn.
Did you catch what she was talking about with the Craigslist haiku page?
I mean, I heard what she was saying.
Were you aware of this?
I don't know the Craigslist haiku page. Are we seeing secret messages in the haikus?
I don't know, y'all. Just, I looked it up.
Is this a thing?
We can't spend time on this. If you're curious, Google it. But it's a thing that exists.
Oh, there's like secret messages in there?
I don't know if that's true. There's secret messages, but there's like this thing called Haiku Hotel in Craigslist. And it's people writing haikus. We're not talking about it. I can't, because it's just...
I'm so curious now.
You can look it up on your own. So I just love, though, how she casually like mentions it. Like, just everyone knows about Craigslist Haiku Hotel, whatever. This is when he gets violent for the first time. He violently grabs her and pushes her and tries to force this pill in her mouth. She calls the cops. He runs away. And it seems like she still doesn't leave him.
Yeah.
Now, to her credit, she does bring her brother into the house, which is for her protection.
Yeah.
4 days later.
But she's got 2 kids in the house.
I know. It's insane. 4 days later, he pushes her again. He drives off with her car. He leaves it in the middle of a highway. Like, literally in the middle of the lane of a highway. Very dangerous. And he runs down the median. He finds a sheriff. He has a moment of lucidity where he needs to get help. He goes to a hospital. And they send him away with a med that needs 4 to 6 weeks to be effective. Which just seems...
Right. I mean, a lot of those meds take that long.
I know. But what are you asking people to do in the interim? Like, what are you asking his wife and family to do until those... You're in psychosis. What are families supposed to do while they wait for the meds to take place?
Well, you'd assume he wouldn't be in psychosis for 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe he could stay there?
At the hospital? I know, but that seems really expensive. It's all fucked up. Because they're like, you can't stay here, but you probably shouldn't go home either. Like, their hands are tied in so many ways. Now...
Oh, yeah. I think they've really gotten rid of mental institutions, too.
Don't get us started on that. So she finally knows that she needs to leave him. What's the final straw? I think that's it, when he gets off the meds after coming home.
But it's weird because Labor Day, September 2017, she moves out in May of 2018. I mean, that's 8 months.
I mean, it felt like there was a lot of time between that first instance. It's hard to know the timeline.
It just seems like 8 months of torture.
She gave it as much as she could. In fact, and she gives him the house.
Yeah.
Sometimes freedom is worth more than anything else.
Oh, yeah. She loves her house. I love that she just loves her house.
I do too. And she recognizes that it's not him. I mean, this is why I did my Understanding Scott segment. Like, his illness overtook him. And so she's grieving the loss of him and who he could have been. She grieves the loss of herself, her marriage, her kids, and their family unit. And she realizes that love isn't always enough. Is that a Celine Dion song?
It is a song. I don't know if it's Celine.
I don't think it's Celine.
Well, now she's dating someone kind and supportive.
Hopefully.
I'm so curious where Scott is now and what's going on with him.
He's probably married to another lady. He's got a whole other family. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe we'll get a storyteller update in a year or so.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This has been an episode of Trauma Bonded. You can find our show where podcasts are kept. If you like us, please rate and review us on Apple or other places. Rate us 5 stars and write, like it, love it, want some more of it. That's it. It takes seconds. And thanks to Anonymous for sharing their story. and giving us the opportunity to talk about it. And thanks to the This Is Actually Happening team, including Whit, Missildine, and Andrew Wades, and to the maker of our music and website, Nathaniel Trimboli. And thanks to Cathy Sites for editing this episode. Sorry, Cathy. And to Katie Capel for building those blasted Instagram posts. As we were just discussing, next week, in addition to regular programming, we'll have a special storyteller update. Stay tuned for that. And you can contact us at traumabondedpod@gmail.com and find us on Instagram at traumabondedpodofficial, or visit our website at traumabondedpod.com. We are trauma bonded to the story, to the storyteller, to the listeners, and to each other. Thanks for spending time with us today in our gross voices. Love you, T.
Love you, Elly. Good job. Hey, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Trauma bonded.